when you say that probably a military or a diplomatic means of taking over Hormuz, so obviously he can't do it alone. He'll have to talk to other countries. Like he made a phone call to Prime Minister Modi also day before yesterday, and everyone in the diplomatic circle started speculating that maybe he would be having a mine sweeping operation in mind. That whatever mines have been laid out in Straits of Hormuz, maybe he's wanting to clear that.
No, the plan is like this, that if they have a diplomatic solution like the 15-point agenda that he proposed, so after the ceasefire is done and an agreement is reached with Iran, then Iran and US will together manage the Strait of Hormuz. So they will split the $2 million. I think that is his plan.
Reports about Pakistan playing the role of a mediator, is that correct? And is Pakistan really in that role?
So Pakistan, so 4 countries were playing the intermediary role. So it depends on whose WhatsApp you have, right? Phone number. So the Pakistanis were talking to some Iranians and then talking to the White House. And then Turks were talking to some people in Iran and talking to the White House. And so were the Qataris and so were the Omanis.
Dr. Khan, don't you think that Prime Minister Modi also would be feeling the same? He would be feeling the heat that even though he's going to chair the BRICS summit and India is going to be the host, but India can't play the role of a mediator. It is Pakistan which is brought in. I mean,
yes.
About the frustration.
I think Prime Minister Modi is so focused on remaining in power in India and being a dominant force that I think he sees all foreign policy issues as will it make me more popular? So I don't know if you have noticed that when you go and do a search on X about Dalal Nation, there's something else also that is popping up. That is the Morning Consult poll, which says Modi is a 68% and the most popular leader. First of all, I want to tell your audience that all Indian reporting about it is misreporting.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. An Iranian diplomatic source described the US's 15-point plan as extremely maximalist and unreasonable, while Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that no negotiations were taking place between Tehran and Washington. Now, White House has warned that the US will hit Iran harder than before if Iran fails to accept the reality of the current moment. But if you talk about the latest updates as far as the strikes are concerned, what we are told is that the strikes, there is no let up in the strikes. In fact, drone launches and missile attacks have been directed towards the Persian Gulf nations. Even Thursday morning, as we speak here in India, the authorities in the United Arab Emirates said that the air defenses were responding to incoming missiles and drones from Iran. Saudi Arabia's air defenses intercepted several drones, the defense ministry has said, without saying where they came from. Bahrain's interior minister said that there was a fire because of Iranian aggression, but did not give details about the strikes or the facility that was hit. And these are the details I'm reading from New York Times. So where is this war headed to? We keep listening to Donald Trump, who keeps giving conflicting signals about war ending. Tehran digging in its heels, saying that the war is not ending. How long will this crisis continue? That's a question which everyone across the globe is asking. And with the deadlock of Hormuz Strait, no one knows how long this crisis will continue. Joining me this evening is a very special guest, Dr. Muqtedar Khan, who is you've seen him on YouTube. He has his own channel called Conversations, which is very popular in US and across. And he's also a professor from Delaware. Thank you so much, Dr. Khan, for joining on HW News. What are you picking up from America? I'm really interested in knowing what is actually happening in White House. And with Trump giving conflicting signals, what is he up to?
Well, I think Donald Trump is looking for an off ramp. He feels he's done enough, but he is also doing things which suggest that he's willing to go further. For example, 82nd Airborne troops, about 3,000, are on the way. They should be in place by tomorrow. About 2,000 plus Marines are heading towards the region. So the U.S., as forward deployed, has 8 to 10,000 troops, other than the 50,000 that are based all around the region. So there is a theory that is going around that the United States might try to annex Karg Island, and that could be the way in which they will control the Strait of Hormuz. I was listening to a General Keane. General Keane is now retired. He's a Fox News analyst, and he was the one who had exposed the Abu Ghraib situation. He was the one who had investigated. So he was saying that he's perplexed as to why the US has not taken the Strait of Hormuz by now. He feels that it is doable. So some generals think that there are military ways of taking the Strait of Hormuz, and I think that is a plan B that is behind the scenes. Donald Trump wants to take it through diplomatic means, and if not, he will continue. But
No,
he's
but
also
when
looking for an
sorry,
off ramp.
when you say that probably a military or a diplomatic means of taking over Hormuz, so obviously he can't do it alone. He'll have to talk to other countries. Like he made a phone call to Prime Minister Modi also day before yesterday, and everyone in the diplomatic circle started speculating that maybe he would be having a mine sweeping operation in mind. That whatever mines have been laid out in Straits of Hormuz, maybe he's wanting to clear that.
No, the plan is like this: that if they have a diplomatic solution, like the 15-point agenda that he proposed, so after the ceasefire is done and an agreement is reached with Iran, then Iran and US will together manage the Strait of Hormuz. So they'll split the $2 million. I think that is his plan. But he's also making money on the side. I think his whole tactics of delaying attack for 5 days was to play the market. If you notice, on Friday, the
Yes.
gas prices were up at $107 per barrel. The stock market was down. And then after Donald Trump said, I'm going to hold back against the Iranian infrastructure and energy structure for 5 days, immediately the stock market shot through the roof and the oil price came down by $10 per barrel. And that's a huge difference. So I can imagine that there are billionaires who must have made billions if they knew ahead of time. And nobody in the Department of Justice at the moment in the United States will investigate Trump, even though they are supposed to be independent. But these days, unfortunately, the checks and balances in the US has gone down significantly.
No,
But
so from what you were saying, Khan, that this entire peace plan and the 15-point peace plan, what he's doling out, is basically just tactics to calm the markets, whereas a war doesn't seem to be ending, and he's thinking of diplomatic and military ways of capturing the Strait of Hormuz.
I think the biggest challenge for Donald Trump is how to get Israel to stop. Let's say there's
Okay.
an agreement between the US and Iran, and the US says, okay, I'm stopping this fight. And Israel says, no, we want to finish this regime off. We don't want to leave the regime intact. We don't want to leave their missiles intact. We don't want to leave Hezbollah intact. And so, if Netanyahu wants to continue with it, and even if Netanyahu drops one additional bomb beyond that, Iran will respond as it is.
Yeah.
Because Iran said, I will do all that it has done if it is attacked. It didn't say that if it is attacked by US or by Iran.
True.
And I think the biggest losers in this, other than Iran, obviously Iran is suffering a lot of damage, is the Gulf countries. The Gulf countries are the biggest losers in this. But if you notice, even the Iranian response was maximalist. I mean, they want all sanctions gone, they want to continue to support Hezbollah. Now they're asking for sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, which is something that they had never asked in the past. So they have made a maximalist demand. So okay, so at least we know what the starting point for negotiations are. Now the question is, will the Dalal nation successfully hold the negotiations or
Mm.
not? Will Pakistan? I mean, I was so disappointed to hear Dr. Jaishankar talk about it. To me, I just did a show before you on that particular thing. I call it sour grapes. Angur khatte hain. If India was negotiated, they would have gone through the roof. They celebrated as if it is Diwali. Even though Trump just called Modi as a pro forma because the Indian ambassador to U.S. ambassador to India, Sergey Gore, called Trump and said, please call him because they are getting fever here. Because he spoke with Asim Munir on Sunday, so he spoke to Asim Munir before he spoke to Modi, right? So the pecking order, you can see, at least as far as Trump is concerned, he's very low. I mean, he doesn't get a call for 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks. So
Right.
from that point of view, I don't think that India is going to play a major role in the Strait of Hormuz, even
No,
though
but
he's
the
the most
report,
affected country.
but Dr. Khan, reports about Pakistan playing the role of a mediator. Is that correct? And is Pakistan really in that role?
So Pakistan, so 4 countries were playing the intermediary role. So it depends on whose WhatsApp you have, right? Phone number. So the Pakistanis were talking to some Iranians and then talking to the White House. And then Turks were talking to some people in Iran and talking to the White House. And so were the Qataris and so were the Omanis. So I think you have frozen, Nilu, and I don't know whether I should continue.
There's an issue with the network, I guess.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
So I can, yeah, I can hear you now, but your video is
Okay.
frozen.
Lost your audio in between. I lost your audio in between. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what is happening is that there are 3 or 4 countries which have been acting as mediators, or rather communicators. So what they are doing is they are sending messages through these countries. And Pakistan is one of those 3 countries which have been talking. Turkey is the other, and Qatar are also part of it. So I think what is going to happen is the Iranians are going to choose where they will go to meet. And I suspect that the Iranians may choose Turkey over Pakistan. So it's not a done deal. Don't assume that tomorrow Marco Rubio and JD Vance are flying to Islamabad. Pakistan is pushing hard to be there. And we will see what happens. One of the two will be happen. If there are more than one dialogue, then it's quite possible the first one could be in Turkey and the second one in Pakistan. And I think if Trump notices that India is going through, India is getting typhoid because Pakistan is getting this, then he might just do it just to troll India. He loves to troll India. So, but the point is that no one is talking about India playing this role, and Pakistan is talking about it, and Pakistan's name is being bandied as an important country in the most important global geopolitical event that is going on at this moment, right? It's like saying, Nilu, that the IPL final is happening and Gavaskar is not invited to comment, right? And he's sitting on TV and he's watching Srikanth do the commentary. How frustrated he's going to get. That is what Dr. Jaishankar must have felt.
No, and Dr. Khan, don't you think that Prime Minister Modi also would be feeling the same? He would be feeling the heat that even though he's going to chair the BRICS summit and India is going to be the host, but India can't play the role of a mediator. It is Pakistan which is brought in. I mean,
yes,
about the frustration.
I think Prime Minister Modi is so focused on remaining in power in India and being a dominant force that I think he sees all foreign policy issues as will it make me more popular? So I don't know if you have noticed that when you go and do a search on X about Dalal Nation, there's something else also that is popping up. That is the Morning Consult poll, which says Modi is a 68% and the most popular leader. First of all, I want to tell your audience that all Indian reporting about it is misreporting. When they say that Modi is 68% popular, it doesn't mean that Americans are saying that it's only Indians who are voting for the Indian leader. So among Indians, he is very popular, but not as a global. So it's not that Americans prefer Modi over Trump. That's not the case. But the way it is reported is that as if that the polling is done worldwide. So there itself, you can see the politics of it. The dishonesty is a reflection of how that is being used. Morning Consult is a really small consulting firm with like 10, 20 people, and they use this data for consulting purposes. They're investors, I think that the fact that that poll is also showing up and being tagged on X is because it's all about the battle for Modi's image in India and has nothing to do. I think the Indian Ministry of External Affairs has forgotten how to think and advance India's national interest. They're confusing it with Modi's popularity and Modi's image. And so all this talk about Modi and these leaders, etc., they never talk about how India has great relations with a particular country. They always talk about how Modi has great relations with the leader in that country. It is Modi who made all those phone calls. None of those Gulf countries are calling India. It's India which is calling them. If you notice that it was Modi who made all those phone calls. Saudi Arabia is the most important country in the Gulf. And guess who it turned to? Asim Munir, who visited Saudi Arabia. There was no phone call with MBS. Did they talk? I don't even know what the discussion was. No one knows, no one cares. So the most important countries in the region have not turned to India. You don't see Bahrain or Kuwait or Qatar, even Oman, maybe only UAE because they have all those agreements and all the
I'm wondering,
relations.
Khan, what we are discussing right now, what you are saying, and what I also feel similarly. Wouldn't the people in the government, wouldn't they feel the same? Look, we are spoiling our relationship with the Gulf nations. Iran, we've already lost it. We've lost the credibility because Iran doesn't think of India at all in those terms of old civilizational ties we had. So, is there no realization in the government, or they're deliberately sidestepping all these issues?
So one thing that has gone extinct in India is investigative journalism. One of the things that needs to be investigated is where are the foreign policy ideas in India coming from? In the olden days, they would come up from the bureaucracy, the Indian Foreign Service, right? The ambassadors would write in memos and it would go up to the secretary. Then the secretary would go and present it to the minister, and the minister will bring their own perspective, their ideology, their vision. And so a mixture of that will be the foreign policy. Now, the ideas are not coming from the bureaucracy, the ideas are coming from the prime minister's office. In fact, one diplomat told me, and please don't try to guess because that person has never been on my show, so no one knows that I know this diplomat. He told me that he said the most irritating thing for me is when I get these ideas from the prime minister's office and I open them, it's in American spelling. The English spellings are all American spellings, which means a lot of those foreign policy ideas are coming from the friends of BJP here in the US who are making these suggestions. This is how you should follow Israel. Go and dance and entertain the president. Go to Israel and dance and sing, if you remember the Epstein files comment. So I think that a lot of this foreign policy is being formulated in the prime minister's office, and then it is shoved down the throat of the professional bureaucracy. I also learned something very surprisingly. I was talking to Pushparaj Deshpande, and he was saying that per capita, India has a very small foreign service. India needs to double the number of bureaucrats and diplomats it has. So India
Yes.
has great foreign policy ambitions, but it is not doing service. I think there is a dereliction of duty there, not just from the prime minister, but also the establishment, that they are not fully exploiting the opportunities that are out there for India. I actually did a show a couple of years ago, Neelu. It was a sarcastic show where I was trying to introduce Dr. Jaishankar to a word that he has never heard of, which is called shuttle diplomacy. I said, borrow Ambani's plane or Adani's plane and then shuttle between Tehran and Tel Aviv. And that is how you do it. That's how you raise this. Even if you fail, you are front and center. There is a crisis, India is there.
That's true.
The world is looking at India. The world is listening to India. And he's quite articulate. He can come up with lots of ideas. If he wants one, you can give him my WhatsApp number. I'll give him a lot of ideas that he wants. There are a lot of people who can help him. They have so many think tanks in India, So I think that India is playing on the back foot, and they're playing defensive in a T20 game, and it doesn't make sense at all. It's very perplexing. It is, that why India is not taking advantage. Plus, India has so much at stake. You must remember that the Strait of Hormuz, the biggest country that is affected negatively is India, because China is getting its ships free. Even now, the ships are going through China. And now the money that Iran is collecting in yuan, not dollar. So even if India pays, which will be 18 crores per ship, which is $2 million, it will be in yuan and not dollars. So for China, it's not a bad deal what is happening. But India is the country which is the most affected. Plus, on top of that, we have nearly 1 crore diaspora in that region. Apparently, some 3 lakh people have already come back
Yes.
from the Gulf. You don't know whether they will go, what will happen to the jobs. There are lots of Indians who have houses and apartments in this. I heard that Ambani bought a $163 million house in Jumeirah, Palm Jumeirah. It's quite possible that its prices have gone down. So there is going to be a lot of negative financial impact on Indians as well as India's trade to that region. So India has a lot at stake, and for India to just sit it out, it's like, I don't understand this.
But I also was interested in knowing that how are the Americans taking this Iran war? What is the reaction? Because you have midterm elections soon in America. How are the Americans responding to Iran war?
So you must understand that Iran has been demonized for decades in this country. Anything bad happens, then you have this long beard and turban. So whether it's Bin Laden or whether it's Ayatollah Khomeini or whether it's Ali Khomeini, it's the same thing, right? The turban and the big beard. So Americans have grown up listening to a lot of negative stuff about Iran for a long time. And then there is a lot of pro-Israeli propaganda in this country justifying this. So in spite of that, I was looking at the polls today. Let me just tell you that among the people, the Donald Trump's approval rating has gone the lowest ever, which is 36%. But not only is his approval ratings down, the support for the war is not very high either. It has never reached 50%. So in the beginning, it was 27%, and I think right now the approval is around 35, 30% are supporting the war effort. And other than that, there are lots and lots. The majority are against the war. They are obviously frightened to death that Trump may go on and launch a ground war in Iran. And not many people are enthused about this idea of regime change. And what is also troubling to me is that the pollsters are not asking some critical questions. Like, they're not asking them, is this war in the interest of the US or Israel, for example? If
Yeah.
they ask, we would get an answer, right? But the
You are
Americans
saying
are
the
thinking
American
of that.
media. So you are saying that the American media is also not reporting honestly or not asking critical questions from Donald Trump.
From the public to get an opinion on that, because they are so scared of the Israeli lobby. It's
Mm.
unbelievable. When I came, there was this guy called Rick Sanchez. He was the main anchor in Miami. I came to Miami first. This was a 92 Gulf War. So
Mm.
I was fascinated by America. I'd never seen anything like this. To me, it was like a tamasha. This country is a tamasha. So I'm watching this Gulf War news, and Rick Sanchez was standing on the map of Kuwait. His heel was on the map of Kuwait, and he's saying, we're going to be attacking from here, and then he couldn't find Kuwait. So it became a very funny moment all over the country that Rick Sanchez couldn't find Kuwait because he was standing on Kuwait on the map. This guy was the main anchor, and there was lots of talk about it. One day, he just asked a question about Israel, and he disappeared. Google him and see. He just disappeared. His career is over. So anybody who's went, like for example, during the Gaza war, there were 3 Muslims who were on MSNBC, including Mehdi Hassan, right? So what they did with Mehdi was they didn't fire Mehdi, because they
Yes.
thought if they fired Mehdi, then he would be with somebody else. So they just put him on the bench, and he's
Mm.
not doing any shows, right? So the media is very pro-Israel, very nasty, and when it comes to the Palestine issue. So they're not asking questions which will
Yeah.
expose the extent of the Israeli lobby's influence on American public opinion with regards to this war or genocide, etc. You know, So, for example, if I ask ChatGPT to create a thumbnail with genocide of Gaza, it refuses to do it.
Oh my God.
It says it's debatable. I said, no, you're on the take from APAC. It's no, I'm not. But when I go to Grok and say that, Grok says, oh, that's because ChatGPT is on the take from the Israeli lobby. But so even AI is now like it has its own internal guardrails, as if AI is
Yes.
afraid of being accused of being critical of Israel. So the public opinion polling is not very honest. But I must tell you this much, that the support among Republicans is still very high for Donald Trump, and that is what he cares about. But overall, independents and the Democrats have moved so far away from him that there is a clear perception that if the midterm elections were to be held today, it is quite possible he'll lose both the House and the Senate. And then he could get impeached.
Yeah.
Really, so it's not a good idea. But if he has made a lot of money this week, if his family has, there's now all this reporting going on that Eric Trump invested in a drone company just a few days before the war started. And now that company is the biggest provider of drones to the US military, etc. So there's a lot of these accusations that the Trump family is basically making billions of dollars because of Trump's foreign policy and other policies. So we will see what is happening. If his friends are making money, he's making money, then this war will continue.
Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I lost
Yeah,
your audio.
yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. So, Dr. Khan, I was interviewing one of the bureaucrats last night for this channel, Mr. E.S. Sarma, and he was pointing out the fact that Iran has huge reserves of hydrocarbons. Then what Donald Trump is doing, that he's also selling weapons. Then he's interested in the hydrocarbon reserves. Then also he's interested in the drones. So, what is war for Donald Trump? Is it just like a business machine where he's churning out money, he's driving the markets, and obviously, so he doesn't want the war to end. And of course, Netanyahu is also unstoppable, like what you explained.
So with Donald Trump, you must understand that he was very anti-war. So during the elections, he said very clearly that no regime change wars, no never-ending wars, no wars in the Middle East, etc. That was his promise, which he made literally. If you go and do a search on YouTube, you'll find literally hundreds of his speeches to that effect. And in fact, there was all this debate among American Muslims. 30% of American Muslims voted for Donald Trump in 2024. And this is the man who wanted to ban Muslims, right, from this country. So we said that he has made it. Why are you voting? And so there was the first answer that we got from Muslims was no new wars. In his entire first term, he did not invade any country or start any new war. In fact, he ended the occupation of Afghanistan. If you remember, he was the one who made the deal with the Taliban.
Yes.
So now you are seeing Trump 2.0 is entirely different from Trump 1.0. And war has become, well, let's not say war, but military, diplomatic aggression has become his main instrument, whether it is tariffs or the military. When he could use tariffs, he was using tariffs. Now the Supreme Court doesn't allow him to use the tariffs. So he's actually using the Department of War. He named it the Department of War. That is what was the original name, by the way. It used to be Department of War, then became Department of Defense. So this is something new, and it's not very well thought out. Donald Trump's administration released the national security strategies and national defense strategies. What they're doing in Iran, completely contrary to what they said their strategies are. So there is a theory that Israel has dragged Donald Trump into this, and there's the power of the Israeli lobby. If you remember that very senior American counterterrorism official, Joseph
Yes.
Kent, who was the director of National Counterterrorism Center, when he quit, he said, I quit because this war is being fought for Israel and under Israeli lobby's pressure.
Yes.
So there is some truth to it, but not entirely. There are other aspects to it too. So
No, but is there a general resentment within the ranks of Trump's administration? Like Joe Kent, of course, is one example where he put in his papers. Then after that, we also saw Tulsi Gabbard saying a few things. Is Donald Trump losing support within his own administration somehow?
So if you look at the big guys, none of the big guys has reneged, right? JD, we know that JD Vance is against this war. There's no doubt about it. We know that Marco Rubio has become a pakka naukar. He's like he's learning from I think from Dr. Jaishankar how to be a foreign minister. Whatever the boss says goes, right? He's trying to just explain rationally and more articulately whatever Trump is trying to do. And he's becoming quite popular because behind the scenes there is a contest between JD Vance and Rubio for presidency in 2028. We are now just 2 years away from the next election cycle. So, but the people who have quit right now, it is only one major person, which is Joe Kent. There was
No,
lots
but
of
what
talk
about the
that he
Department of
gathered with
War?
fellow, but she didn't. She's still in
Dr.
power.
Khan, what about the Department of War? Because I was watching, I think it was CNN or some other channel, which said that there was a difference. Donald Trump said that no, it was Pete Hegseth who ordered the war. Then Pete Hegseth again, I saw him lauding Donald Trump. Now, what is going on within the Department of War? Are there
So, so
differences?
there is a disagreement in the military and the political side of it, right? The civilian side of it. For example, the Joint Chiefs was very clear that the goals that you are setting cannot be achieved in the short run. The war will be very bloody, very expensive, and very long. That is the military's position very clearly. So he's I don't know why the Trump administration assumed that we'll bomb the hell out of Iran for 1 week and then the Iranians will just, surrender. I mean, this was the same assumption they made about Iraq war. There was this rumor that George W. Bush's administration was searching for an Impala. You know what an Impala, the old 1950s convertible Impala that John F. Kennedy used to ride in. So they were searching for such a car so that G.W. Bush could go through Baghdad as a liberator, waving. उसको तो जूते पड़ने वाले थे. They were throwing shoes at him if he had done that. So it was this perception that we will be welcomed by liberators. And that's the rubbish that the Iranian lobby here has been feeding the Trump administration, that 90% of the Iranians are against the regime. So all you have to do is go and bomb Iran and the Iranians will be thrilled. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to believe that argument, right? I'm so critical of the Modi government, but I staunchly oppose any efforts here in the US to lobby sanctions against India because I know it's ordinary Indians who are going to suffer if there are any sanctions imposed. It's not going to affect the rich or the government, right? So the Iranians dreaming that they would be bombed to hell their country, and Iranians are very proud of their heritage. It's like saying that imagine we get into a war and some idiot drops a missile on the Taj Mahal. Can you imagine what a loss that would be? Even if you rebuild it, it's not the same thing again, right? So the Iranians don't want their heritage to be destroyed in this war, and Netanyahu is nasty enough to do that. Mearsheimer, I don't know who it was, said that. I think Tucker Carlson said that Israel is the ugliest country in the Middle East. And it just envies the beauty of the rest of the Muslim world, and so they're going to destroy all the beautiful things that Iran has. So there are all of these reasons why I don't think that the Iranians would have. That is what the Trump administration, or like the French, the French, in order to preserve their heritage, immediately surrendered. Otherwise, Germany would have bombed Paris like it bombed London. But no, these guys are fighting back, and they're fighting hard. And I was listening to the former chief of MI6, the British counterintelligence, and he says that he thinks that Iran has an upper hand in this because it controls the Strait of Hormuz. And Trump is also constantly lying about the way the war is going. That we have completely destroyed Iran's navy. We have destroyed their army. We have destroyed. Then what's the trouble? Like, why are the ships not going through the Strait of Hormuz? Do you know that 3,000 ships that are stuck total? 2,000 inside the Persian Gulf and 1,000 outside. So the traffic both ways is blocked. It's not just one way. The ships eventually. I was talking to an Indian diplomat who was saying, Muqtedar, people are just focused on oil. What they don't know is very soon there will be no tomatoes available in the Gulf because they have to go in, right? So even countries like, for example, if you look at Kuwait and Iraq, for example, and Qatar, They have no other way out. You're not going to fly in tomatoes, right? You have to bring in by ship. So food and other, you're going to have food insecurity in these rich countries because there is no traffic through the Strait of Hormuz.
So my last question to you, Dr.
Yeah.
Khan, is that are we in a position to predict when the war is going to end, or it's like a long drawn battle, what we see in Ukraine?
That's very difficult to say. If
Yeah,
he needs to, my estimate is that he will need a much bigger army than they even sent into Iraq. So we are looking at close to 500,000 people. That is not going to happen. To occupy Iran, Iran is 4 times bigger than Iraq. Iran's size is half of India's size. So it's a huge country, and 92 million people. Occupying it is not going to be easy. Maybe they can occupy Tehran, I don't know, but it is going to be terrible. So this idea is not possible. Will they continue shooting missiles and drones and bombs at each other? Yeah, that could go on and on. Like what is happening with Iraq, with Russia and Ukraine? It's like they're just playing shuttlecock. So with drones.
there also doesn't seem to be any possibility in the sight of the Strait of Hormuz also opening.
That will, there'll be a lot of pressure on Iran to do that. There will be a lot of pressure on Iran to do that. And because it's going to create a global recession, Nilu, if that doesn't happen. Look at the problem that you're already having in India with cooking gas, right? India has supply of 18 to 20 days on petrol and diesel. Everything is going to go through the roof. So to countries like India, the economy could go down, not just India, but South Korea, Japan. They are going to be hit very hard. So there will be a lot of pressure on Iran from the rest of the world. It is quite possible that they may start paying that $2 million per ship toll, which probably they should, because if they don't do that, then the insurance has already gone up 1,000% on the ships itself. Plus, if the ships are taking longer route, then the cost goes up anyway. So it is possible that if Iran is able to hold on to the Strait of Hormuz, then there will be some cost involved to it. And by the way, all the payments are being made in yuan, so there is a de-dollarization also going on because of Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Imagine before this, there were 150 ships a day. Now you have had less than 20 ships in the last 1 month. So it's a pretty serious bottleneck. And there are no solutions with short-term solutions. They will take years and years to get around, build pipelines, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Khan. It was a lovely conversation, and I guess it's quite a late night now for you. You take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.